Sri Lanka hits crazy high record levels of inflation, causing protests and more. And what's happening in Sri Lanka, Lebanon, and other emerging markets is maybe what is coming to the United States. I'm going to break down exactly what's going on there in Lebanon, in Turkey, and other emerging markets to show you what's happening and how those same things are being done here, and maybe what's happening there could be coming. We're going to break that down and more, so let's jump into it. All right, so if you're looking at my screen right here, you can see this story that just breaks. Sri Lanka inflation hits a record 39% as shortages persist. So first, I just want to break this down a little bit. So inflation hits a record 39%. So a couple things. First off, what is the definition of inflation? So this is the first thing we have to discuss because a lot of people have different definitions. Now, my definition per the Austrian economics view of inflation is the money supply increasing. When you increase the money supply, then lots of distortions happen through the markets, including the prices of goods and services go up. You have more money chasing the same amount of goods and services, the price of goods and services go up. Everything comes down to supply and demand. Super simple. If I increase the money supply, it increases the demand. If I increase the demand and the supply stay the same, prices go up. All right. Now, the definition of inflation that most people are using today is just looking at prices going up. So I say that inflation is money going up and the prices going up are the result of that. But per CPI, the government uses to measure inflation, Consumer Price Index, they're looking at prices. So in context of what we're talking today, we're talking about prices going up. So Sri Lanka inflation has hit a record 39%, 40%. The prices have gone up by 40%, or the dollars they use, the money they use to buy those things has gone down in value. We're going to take a look at that. So we can see here Sri Lanka hits 49% as shortages persist. We can see here inflation surged to a record in a continuing food and fuel shortages. All right, so that's a key piece we're going to come back to. But food and fuel shortages. We can see here that consumer prices in the capital rose 39%, but food inflation surged 57%. And this is amid a shortage of essentials in the absence of dollars to pay for imports. So what we can see is that food inflation has surged 57%. Now, if we look at this, here's another chart. This is the Sri Lanka currency, the LKR, looked at in U.S. dollars terms. And so you can see since the beginning of the year, it is down 44% to the U.S. dollar. So that means if you are holding dollars, you can actually buy more goods there in Sri Lanka today. However, you're holding their local currency, it now takes more of those currency units to buy those same goods and services. Now, why is this going up? Why are prices going up so high? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Actually, there's a lot of reasons. Let's dig into that. So we can see amid all of this problem, amid this massive sky-high inflation, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka has resigned after weeks and weeks of protest. We can see here there's a chant heard. It's one down, one to go. That's a chant heard of anti-government protests late Monday in Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo, after the resignation of one of the two remaining brothers, the country's most powerful politicians. The prime minister tweeted Monday that he has submitted his resignation effective immediately amid his country's worst economic crisis in decades. Why is there such a big economic crisis? Well, again, supply and demand. We're going to break that down. But we can see that the brothers have been the focus of nationwide protests for several weeks. Demonstrators blame them for mismanaging an economic crisis that led to months of fuel and food shortages. We're going to keep hearing that over and over. Fuel and food shortages. Kind of like the United States running out of baby formula. Kind of like the potentially fuel rationing we might have in the United States this summer. We'll keep coming back to that. And of course here, rolling blackouts and soaring inflation. So rolling blackouts, sort of like the United States is in. As a matter of fact, California goes through rolling blackouts every summer. Last summer, they said you can't even charge your EV vehicle. And we have these rolling blackouts, Michigan rolling blackouts, and they just decided to shut down their nuclear reactor, again, reducing supply of electricity. What happens when you reduce supply? Oh, yeah, prices go up. That's right. So if we look at this, it's the focus of nationwide protests for several weeks. They blame them for mismanaging an economic crisis. So supply and demand. So if we need energy and we reduce the supply, what's going to happen to energy prices? Inflation. They go up. President Joe Biden, first day in office, what does he do? Shut down the oil pipelines, shut down the oil permits. What does that do? That reduces the supply of energy. In California, we had three nuclear reactors. 2 of them have been shut down. The third is now scheduled to be shut down in a state where we already don't have enough energy. And now they want to shut down the third and final nuclear reactor. Again, we don't have enough energy. They want to reduce the supply even more. What's going to happen to the prices? So when it comes to here, the brothers are a focus of nationwide protest for several weeks. Demonstrators blame them for mismanaging an economic crisis. Sort of like when there's an economic crisis, you're making it worse by continuing to reduce the supply. Wouldn't a better way be to at least keep the supply as is, if not increase the supply? So it comes down to 2 parts: mismanaging the economic crisis, which then leads to the fuel and food shortages. Now we can see here the family has dominated Sri Lankan politics in recent years. The brothers have been around for a long time in parliament since 1970, previously served as president for a decade, prime minister twice. His younger brother was elected president in 2019. He was previously secretary of defense. So this family has been in politics for over 50 years, controlling what's going on and mismanaging. Now what's happening? Well, people are now protesting in the streets, burning down buildings. Why? Because they can't feed their families and they don't have energy. Food and energy. You're going to keep hearing about that as we break this down. Now, there's a new prime minister that's come in right here, and he went straight to Twitter, kind of like President Donald Trump, going straight to Twitter and talking directly to the people. And he says right here, there's a lot to be done and undone. We are prioritizing what matters. Rest assured they shall be addressed as early as possible. All right, so whatever he's going to do, he's going to figure out how to get more fuel and energy and food. It's the one thing the central banks are powerless to do. They can print more money, but they can't print more energy and food. Now, this isn't just Sri Lanka. This is happening to all emerging markets. This is a key piece. It happens to emerging markets first. So we're already seeing fuel and food crisis happening in the United States, but we haven't seen all of this damage. So this is kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will. So let's take a look at this. Turkey's inflation soars to 73%. A 23-year high as, again, food and energy costs skyrocket. We can see our food prices in the country of 84 million people rose to 91% year on year. Food prices rose 91%. That means they've doubled. Food doubled. Now, did your pay double? Most likely not. Food and energy, we keep seeing that over and over. It says here, economic and analysts expect the trajectory for Turkey's inflation will only get worse. The trajectory. So that means the rate of increase, which is 91%, that's the rate of increase. They're saying that trajectory will only get worse. So we'll go from 91% to 125%, 200%, 500%. How much worse can that trajectory get? I'd say 100% is already pretty bad. Of course, it's not just happening there. Lebanon, same thing. Lebanese protesters block roads over economic meltdown. We can see here Lebanon's economic crisis, which erupted in 2019, has propelled more than 3/4 of the population into poverty, and the local currency has plummeted over 90%. So that means prices have gone up 90% because of the local currency losing its purchasing power. So we can see 3/4 of the population are in poverty today before they were. Why? Because they can't afford the food and the energy that goes into it. Why is that? Well, again, mismanagement and debt. Now, if we take a look at this, it's not just these emerging markets. As we can see on this chart right here, the G7, so this is the top 7 countries in the world, are also seeing massive inflation in what? That's right, food and energy. You can see it right here on the right side of this chart. They're going up almost vertically like a hockey stick. Now, like I said, these are canaries in the coal mine. This tell us what's happening, and you think it can't happen in the United States. Well, let's take a look at this. We can see here that Biden admits that gas and food prices are not coming down anytime soon. They're not coming down anytime soon. Why? Well, supply and demand. If we want energy prices to come down in the United States, what would we do? We would increase the supply. If we want food prices to come down in the United States, what will we do? We would increase the food. Problem is, as I said, in Biden's first day in office, it was to shut down the energy. Not increase energy, it's to shut it down. And so Biden admits that they're not coming down anytime soon. Why? Because he won't reverse his policy decisions. And even if he did, even if there was a magic wand, he waved it today, he reversed all these policies, it doesn't come back automatically. When you go for almost a decade threatening oil companies that you're going to put them out of business. Now, Biden ran on a campaign saying he was going to put coal manufacturers out of business energy. We get most of our energy today. He's going to run them out of business. He said his goal is to make them go bankrupt. We saw his elected person, Amarova, who was one to put in charge of the controller of the comptroller of the currency. She didn't win the nomination, but he tried to get her in there. And she said she wanted oil companies to go bankrupt. So when you tell these companies they're going to go bankrupt, my goal is to make you go bankrupt, they're not going to be investing a lot of money into their business. They're going to be investing money into new technologies to get more out or to find it better or to make it cleaner. They're not going to invest new technology into new oil leases or drilling new wells. And the problem is those wells, those coal fields that they have, they eventually run out. So when you don't look for new oil, don't look for new natural gas, you don't invest into that, then there's none coming. So even if he had a magic wand and he reversed all his policy decisions today, it's going to take time for them to go explore, for them to drill, for them to bring that back online. Same with food. If we're having a food crisis, well, if food's going up, if the prices of food are going up, what would you do? You would increase the supply of food. The United States subsidizes farmers and pays them to not plant food on part of their land for this green initiative. Now, the farmers have went and begged the Secretary of Agriculture, please let us plant on this part of land. We'll bring more food to the economy. It'll be good for everybody. And they said, no, it does not fit into our agenda. So if Sri Lanka is having massive protests, Turkey, Lebanon, massive protests, the government is being ousted because of, as they said in their own words, years of mismanagement, what's happening in the United States? Is it being managed properly? The answer is no. Now, look, I've been talking about energy crisis coming for over 2 years now, not because I have a crystal ball, because of policies. Look at the policy that goes into place, and then you can imagine what happens. When you shut down energy, you end up with less of it. When you end up with less of it, the prices go up. That makes it very, very difficult for people to live when food and energy. Now, if we don't get a handle on these situations, what's happening in Sri Lanka and Turkey and Lebanon will be happening here. When people can't eat, they go crazy. 9 meals to anarchy. You've heard me talk about that before. So a couple things that I want to alert you to. One, as of right now, they're only doubling down on these policies. They're not getting better. So be prepared for that. Make sure you're prepared to have higher fuel, higher energy, and higher food costs. What do you do to prepare? Well, one, figure out how to make more money, maybe learn new skills, maybe pick up an extra job. Two, figure out where you store your money matters. Back to the Sri Lanka currency. If you were holding dollars, you did pretty good. If you were holding their local currency, you lost big. What you store your wealth in matters. And then ultimately, pay attention to these policies, because if they don't get better, not only will your cost of living go up, I hate to say it, it's hard to imagine, but more protests and more eruptions in the local government are coming. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Let me know what you think about these policies that are being put into place. And do you think if we do the same policies that Sri Lanka, Lebanon, and Turkey are doing, will we end up in the same position? Yes or no? Let me know down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, that's okay. Give me a thumbs down. But at least leave me a comment and let me know why. That's what I got for you today. All right? To your success. I'm out.